Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at the bow stance, which can be a short bow stance, also referred to as the basic fighting stance, or it can be a longer version of that stance that we use more supplementally. At any rate, this bow stance is the primary stance that we use in our practice. Everything begins and ends in this basic fighting stance or bow stance. No technique or series of techniques is complete without returning to this fundamental posture. In the basic fighting stance, the feet are shoulder width apart, the knees are bent, the weight is 50-50 on the balls of the feet. The back foot is not directly behind the front foot, it's off to the side. The hands are up in a guard position. Starting out, they should be in loose fists to protect the fingers. Later, we can go to open-handed with the fingers together. And eventually, ultimately, you can hold the hands in a relaxed posture or any place, position that you feel works for you. Right? And in this fighting stance, the spine is straight, the glutes, the pelvis, they're tucked underneath. Breathing is from the abdominal region. The tongue is in the mouth is closed, and the eyes are looking straight ahead or focused on the center of your partner's body. From this position, I can move in any direction I want to go as quickly as possible. Okay? And you'll notice that my body is positioned on a 45-degree angle relative to a partner standing in front of me. This reduces the exposure of targets on my body. It also keeps all four weapons. There's a front hand that goes with the front foot, back hand. It keeps all four of these weapons available for blocking, striking, kicking, grabbing, and so on. The length of this basic fighting stance, this short bow stance from front to back, is about a natural walking stride. Everyone's going to do it a little differently, but that's a good place to start. Basic fighting stance. Everything begins and ends here. It's a posture of physical, mental, spiritual readiness, the ability to respond spontaneously, creatively, and effectively to the incoming energy. One will always be tailoring and adapting this stance, evolving it to their individual body, to the strategies and methods they favor, and to the situations they encounter. Now, when we're talking about a longer bow stance, we're referring to that length from front to back. In the short bow, or the basic fighting stance, we said it was about a walking stride. As we get into what we refer to as a long bow, it's going to be anything longer than that. And typically, you can still do a 50-50 with a longer bow stance, but it lends itself a little more to 60-40 to the front is usually how you'll be applying it. It can shift to the back. Okay? With this bow stance, you want to be able to shift your weight back and forth from one leg to the other by straightening one leg as you bend the other, rotating from the center. Okay, so a longer bow stance is more of a transitional posture. Some people will use a longer bow stance as their basic fighting stance, and that's fine. There's pros and cons to each. But a longer bow stance, it's more stable, it's got more power, but it's a little less mobile. Okay? Places where this would occur is if I'm in my fighting stance, and let's say front kick attack is coming in, and I move to the side and I'm sidestepping forward. On that first step, I'm stepping into a longer bow stance. This leg's bent, this leg's relatively straight, but it's not locked. Okay? So that would be that sidestep moving out of the way, going into that longer bow stance. It might also be, it occurs at different times and places where that attack's coming in, and because of the distancing involved, I needed to step further to do my counter technique, or I wanted to add additional power or stability to it. You can see I've stepped into a longer bow stance. But one thing I want to be clear on, though, is that many styles of martial arts, when they're talking about a bow stance, they're going much longer. Some of them are like this. Everyone has seen this. These are really strong, really stable, really powerful. Got a lot of respect for it. But it's not very mobile. It's difficult to move quickly in and out of a stance this long, this deep. Also, the deeper, the longer you go, the harder it is on the joints, the hips, back, knees. So it's not suitable for many people. So while there are no absolutes, we generally aren't referring to a stance that long or that deep. Our longer bow stance is going to be more like this. It's longer than a walking stride, but it's not as long as the one I just showed you. Okay. So you want to learn how to move around from the center in a bow stance. You want to feel what this fighting stance is about. You want to internalize it. You want to understand internally the strength, the capacities that exist within this fundamental vibration boosting posture of readiness, of responsiveness, of presence. Work on this bow stance. The short bow, basic fighting stance, or the long bow. We'll see you next time.